So when it comes to legendary dive watches, there are a few that instantly come to mind. But for me, one always stands out. A true dive watch icon with an almost unmatched history. It could possibly amount to horological dive watch perfection. This is the Rolex Sea-Dweller, specifically reference 126600, the 50th anniversary edition released in 2017. In this video, we'll go through its specs, talk about what's good, what's not so good, and how it wears, all to see if the legendary hype is real. A watch so capable, it's just ridiculous. So this Sea-Dweller is the latest in a long line of dive watches designed for extreme professionals, Rolex's attempt at making the ultimate wearable luxury diver. When it comes to size, the Sea-Dweller comes in with a diameter of 43mm. That being said, with my calipers, it actually measures a fraction over 42mm across. It has a look-to-look dimension of 49.3mm, with an absolute dimension across the wrist of 53.3mm, if you include the solid mail end links of the bracelet. The watch has a lug width of 22mm. The thickness is stated as a rather beefy 15mm, but again, when measuring it myself, it came in smaller at 14.5mm. Either way, its dimension set results in a rather substantial wearing experience. The weight, including the bracelet, comes in at 181 grams. So yeah, it's far from a svelte dress watch. All that being said though, the Sea-Dweller is still wearable, even on my 6.5-inch wrist. Just. Rolex have been clever with its design, hiding its overall thickness and weight pretty well. It definitely wears smaller than its dimensions would suggest. The mid-case section is only 6mm thick, with another 4.5mm getting lost in the classic bubble caseback, meaning when it's strapped down to the wrist, it sits low, with only the mid-case and bezel visible. In short, it basically amounts to a Submariner on steroids, still retaining all the classic Rolex DNA. The case is made from Rolex's own 904L stainless steel. It's a highly corrosion-resistant blend of steel that retains a vivid high polish, plus it doesn't need rinsing after exposure to salt water. The overall build is nothing short of tank-like. Make no mistake, this is a proper tool watch. It's the absolute definition of the saying. The case design is the latest evolution of Rolex's Super Case, the angular flat-sided design first introduced with the GMT Master 2 back in 2007, a design that's been rolled out across most of its professional range, including the Submariner and Explorer 2. It is, however, a more graceful adaptation, with a thinner lug profile when viewed head-on, especially compared to the GMT. It seems like it was absolutely the point of reference when Rolex decided to redesign the Submariner in 2021. A watch that now features similar design cues. The watch features prominent crown guards on the right side of the case, nicely blending into the high polished case sides. The lug tops are satin brushed, again nicely blending into the bracelet and end links, further adding to that tool watch aesthetic. A helium escape valve can be found inset on the left side of the case. The bezel is also 904L steel with a black ceramic insert known as Cerachrom in the world of Rolex. It's basically scratch resistant, which is ideal for a tool watch you may wear on a daily basis. It's also UV resistant, so it won't fade with exposure to the sun. The bezel is 120 click for accurate placement and features a highly polished, deep knurled edge that's easy to grip with wet or sweaty hands. The markings are off-white in colour with a fine layer of platinum used as the material, meaning they're also immune to fading and discoloration. We have an inverted triangle and lumed bezel pearl at 12, with larger rectangles and numerals at alternating 10-minute intervals. Unlike the Submariner, the Sea-Dweller features a 60-minute bezel, with marks denoting each minute mark. The Submariner and the majority of dive watches tend to only feature markings for the first 15 minutes. Like all Rolex bezel, the feel is incredible, probably industry-leading with sharp yet silky feeling detents as it turns. The sound is nothing short of delightful. All that said, from wearing the watch for over a week now, I've noticed that the bezel is prone to moving a click or two if you knock it against a hard surface, which isn't great if you're trying to precisely time something, or for the price. The crystal is sapphire and pretty much scratch resistant, again nice and expected. It measures 31mm wide and does not feature any anti-reflective coating. The watch features the Rolex Cyclops date magnifier, which is also made from sapphire. Traditionally, no Sea-Dweller has featured a Cyclops, so for this to now include one is a hard pill to swallow for some die-hard followers of the model line. Basically, back in the day, Rolex simply didn't have the expertise to secure the Cyclops against the pressure of deep water. It would simply fall off as the bond wouldn't be sufficient. Now, however, they can, so they did. Does it bother me? No, not personally. It falls in line with the standard Rolex design DNA, and having it absolutely makes the date easier to read. On the right side of the case, we have a screw-down triplock crown denoted by 3 dots. Rolex likes to call this its triple waterproofness system, something they add to the majority of their dive watches. The crown is polished on its face, featuring the Rolex coronet, the 3 dots, and sharp knurling, making it easy to operate. One observation though is that the crown logo does not align perfectly when fully screwed down. This is just annoying. When it comes to the dial, the design and layout are simply iconic Rolex. We have a semi-gloss black dial base, slightly less reflective and more muted than a Submariner, adding to the tool watch theme. The edge of the dial features a half-minute track for precise minute and seconds reading, with the dashes every 5 minutes being slightly thicker. When it comes to dial text, below 12 we have a coronet followed by Rolex and then Oyster Perpetual date, all in white. Above 6 we have the iconic single red Sea-Dweller script, a nod to the original watch, and the first time we've seen it on a Sea-Dweller since, which is pretty freaking cool to be fair. Below this we have 3 additional lines of text, also in white. The depth rating that reads 4,000 feet, 1,220 meters. Not a precise conversion, but I guess we'll let them off. Superlative chronometer is next up, closely followed by officially certified. Finally, at the bottom of the dial, we have Swiss made split by another Rolex coronet, something Rolex has added to all of its watches since 2018. When it comes to the markers, they're all applied and all made from white gold. At 12, we have an inverted triangle, rectangles at 6 and 9, and circles at each 5-minute mark. All of the markers are loomed with Rolex's blue chromolite, which can apparently stay visible for up to 8 hours. Last but not least, we have the rehort, the steep, flat-sided inner ring between the dial and the crystal. This can be found on all modern Rolex models, featuring an engraved coronet at 12, followed by repeating Rolex text. Other than the red text, the overall design is stereotypically Rolex. There are no major differences compared to its other professional models such as the Submariner and GMT. The hands follow in the same vein as the markers. Again, they're all made of white gold and feature blue chromolite loom. We have the standard 3-hand setup with minutes, hours, and center seconds. The hour hand is classic sports Rolex, featuring the Mercedes style design. The minute hand is a thin sword style stretching out to the minute track and chamfering back to the center pinion, with the second hand being a counterweighted lollipop design with a loom circle 2/3 down. All of the hands are highly polished, making them stand out from the dial below and legible in pretty much any situation. In true Rolex fashion, the Caseback is pretty unremarkable, although this one is slightly different. It's the normal solid screw down affair, but unlike most Rolexes, we do have some extra visual interest. The center circle of the Caseback is brushed, surrounded by an outer line of high polish. Here we have engravings. Between 2 Rolex coronets, first up we have Rolex Oyster Sea-Dweller, followed by original gas escape valve. Past this we have the standard coin edge knurling that's used for friction when opening the watch with the tool. When viewed from the side, you can see just how heavily domed the Caseback is, allowing the movement to sit low, disguising the overall thickness when on the wrist. The Caseback tapers off heavily, meeting the all-brushed underside of the case. So now for the bracelet, and cutting a long story short, Rolex bracelets are up there with the best in the industry. Here we have a traditional 3-piece oyster design, all made from the same 904L steel as the case, with all links and conforming end links being solid in construction. The end links in particular are incredibly well done, with zero gapping between the lugs and a prominent center section mating it to the case. It almost has an integrated look and feel to it. The finish is all satin brushed on both sides, resulting in a silky smooth feel, especially on the wrist, making it super comfortable to wear. The side of the links are high polished with removable links fixed by screws. The bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lug ends down to 17mm at the clasp for a well considered aesthetic. Personally, tapered bracelets just look way better than straight ones, providing a comfortable, visually pleasing fit. Rolex bracelets just have a heft and solidity to them that's unmatched. This one is no exception. The feel and construction are simply phenomenal. There are no other OEM bracelet options available for the Sea-Dweller, so it's this oyster style or nothing. It would be nice to see other choices, maybe an Oysterflex rubber strap with conforming end link like a Daytona. Now that would look pretty epic. When it comes to the clasp, again, it's just insanely good. Possibly the most feature-rich of any Rolex watch, and unquestionably one of the best, if not the best, in the entire industry. Its construction and features are just next level. The clasp measures 45mm long, 19mm wide, and 7mm thick. The top side is all satin brushed like the bracelet, with a raised middle section mirroring its design. The sides of the clasp are all high polished, again matching the bracelet links. For security, and like other models in the professional lineup, the clasp features the Oyster lock, a clamshell lock featuring a welded Rolex crown. Next we have the secondary lock, which is made up of a beak and a hook. It's spring-loaded and needs to be lifted to unlock. This isn't simply a friction-fit clasp. Once open, it reveals thick gauge steel with a high polished finish. The words Rolex, Geneva and Swiss made can be seen engraved on the top side. Now for adjustment, and again it's industry leading. First up is Glide Lock, Rolex's tool-free adjustment feature offering 20mm of on-the-fly adjustment in 2mm increments. Simply snap out the lock and slide to get a perfect fit. Next, and unique to the Sea-Dweller models, we have a flip-out dive extension, designed for use over a wetsuit. Again, simply flip it open and it offers a further 50mm of fixed extension. What's nice is that the flip extension can be removed by unscrewing it from the clasp and bracelet, slimming down the overall clasp thickness. When combined with the bracelet, the entire setup is incredible. It would no doubt last forever. Powering the Sea-Dweller is the in-house Rolex manufacturer 3235 automatic movement. It's self-winding, bi-directional, and features a new, more durable rotor bearing. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, pivots on 31 joules, and has a power reserve of 70 hours. The movement also features hacking, hand winding, and a quick set date. It also comes with Rolex's Parachrom hairspring, protecting against magnetism, as well as a Leica etched chronogy escapement, Rolex's version of the Omega coaxial, resulting in less friction and more longevity between servicing. The movement is also protected against shock with a free-sprung balance and Paraflex absorbers. When it comes to accuracy, the movement has a handmade Breguet-style overcall hairspring, tested to the standard 5-position COSC chronometer rating. This is then taken further by Rolex with its superlative testing, guaranteeing an accuracy of -2 to +2 seconds per 24 hours. So, wearability. This is going to be subjective. After all, this is a sizable watch. My wrist is 6.5 inches, and in my opinion, it's pushing the edges of what's possible. As I mentioned before though, the way in which the watch has been designed definitely helps the wear on a smaller wrist. Here you can see the watch on my wrist against a selection of other watches for comparison. On the left we have a Seiko 5 Diver. It's 42.5mm wide, 46mm lug to lug, and 13.5mm thick. On the right we have a Tudor Black Bay Pro with a diameter of 39mm, a lug to lug of 47.2mm, and a thickness of 14.6mm. Against the Tudor, which is basically as thick, you can see that the Rolex appears to wear smaller in terms of thickness. This is all down to the height dimension being split between the narrow mid case and bubble caseback. The Tudor shows most of its height in its deep slab sides, making it appear much thicker, despite the dimension being almost identical. So what's the cost of such a legendary watch? Well, it's not exactly cheap. The Sea-Dweller starts at £11,150 in steel, increasing to £15,150 for the two-tone steel and gold variant. Both models are identical when it comes to specs. Is that worth it? Well, only you can really decide. Against other professional Rolex models, the Sea-Dweller does stack up well when it comes to features. On the secondary market, the watch is basically holding its value, being on average plus or minus £500 against retail. It's not a particularly sought after model, which can only really be put down to its size, as aesthetically it looks very similar to the always popular Submariner. Now for 5 not so good things about the Rolex Sea-Dweller. This one's subjective, but for me the overall weight and thickness are too large, making it a touch too cumbersome for daily use. This is purely down to my wrist size and personal taste though. The 22mm lug width makes it awkward when swapping out straps. This one really needs to stay on the bracelet. The crown position when screwed down leaves the logo at an angle. Again, annoying. Compared to the Submariner, the Sea-Dweller has a more look at me vibe. This is mainly down to its size, the extra hour markings on the bezel, and the larger shiny bezel teeth. The bezel is prone to advancing a detent or two when knocked. I just feel this is poor for such an expensive and otherwise extremely well built piece. So what about all that's good? Well, the overall build quality. The fit and finish of all the components are truly epic. It's built like a tank and would no doubt last 10 lifetimes. The red Sea-Dweller text provides a super nostalgic feel and a touch of discreet yet welcome colour to the dial. Like all Rolexes with a rotating bezel, this one is ceramic, making it pretty much immune to scratches, which is always welcome on a potential daily wear. The feel of the bracelet on the wrist is simply otherworldly. It's so smooth it feels like it isn't even there, apart from the weight of course. Without question, this is the best clasp in the Rolex lineup and probably the best in the entire watch industry. So, what's the verdict on the Rolex Sea-Dweller reference 126600? Should you be adding one to your collection? Well, that depends, mainly in regards to your wrist size and whether or not you like large, loud watches. If we're talking history and cool factor, the Sea-Dweller line is legendary. If you want out and out the best wearable dive watch that Rolex makes, this is it without question. The build quality is next level and the look is iconic Rolex. For me, ultimately, it's a no, purely because I feel it's a bit too large for my wrist as a daily wear, and too expensive just to have lying around for whenever I may go saturation diving, which is obviously never. I'm not taking anything away from this watch though, it is truly phenomenal. Guys, thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the Rolex Sea-Dweller? Would you buy one? What are your thoughts on its size and would you wear one as a daily? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next review, and we'll catch you in the next video.